No one expects a funeral when they head out for sushi, but sometimes all it takes is one wrong bite. Hi, I'm Timothy, and today we're looking at 7 times sushi bit back. From a man experimenting the deadly pufferfish dish at home to an influencer who swallowed a fish bone while filming sushi content and met the worst fate possible. It was September 14th, 2017, inside a Mediterranean wedding venue near Haifa, Israel. Music and champagne filled the crowded reception hall as guests celebrated the remarriage of Yael Navon. Dr. Eli Navon was 44 years old and worked as a cardiologist at a medical center in Haifa. Friends described him as intelligent, easygoing, and highly respected among colleagues. Years earlier, he had been married to Yael Navon after the two met at a seaside cafe in Haifa, while Eli was still enduring exhausting hospital residency shifts. Yael admired his dedication to medicine, while Eli loved her warmth and humor. But over time, Eli became consumed by work. He constantly answered hospital calls during dinners, canceled vacations for emergencies, and often spent more nights at the hospital than at home. The marriage eventually ended peacefully, and although they divorced, the two remained on good terms. So when Yael became engaged again years later, she personally invited Eli to the wedding. He accepted without hesitation and told co-workers he was genuinely happy to see her moving forward. That's the thing about maturity. Sometimes people let each other go without hatred, without screaming, and without revenge. One thing most guests already knew, though, was that Yael had always loved sushi. Even during her marriage to Eli years earlier, she constantly ordered Japanese food, and fresh wasabi had always been her favorite part of the meal. So for the reception, she requested a large sushi bar filled with imported seafood and oversized portions of fresh wasabi. Throughout the evening, Eli appeared relaxed, greeting old friends and chatting with several fellow doctors in attendance. At some point, while standing near the sushi table, someone joked about the oversized portions of wasabi placed beside the platters. Eli laughed and said Yael had always claimed nobody could handle real wasabi properly. Trying to entertain the group, he picked up an entire thumb-sized portion and swallowed it in one bite. Almost immediately, he went quiet. Seconds later, his face tightened in pain. He complained of sudden chest pressure and dizziness before collapsing sideways into a chair, sending glasses and plates crashing onto the floor. The music stopped almost immediately. Several doctors attending the wedding rushed toward him while others called emergency services. As guests backed away from the sushi bar, Eli drifted in and out of consciousness on the ballroom floor while doctors struggled to stabilize his irregular pulse. Paramedics arrived within minutes with emergency cardiac equipment. Doctors and responders worked quickly to stabilize Eli while guests watched from a distance. Yael stood near the dance floor as Eli was repeatedly shocked with a defibrillator and given oxygen. Despite continuous CPR and immediate medical attention, he was transported to a nearby hospital in critical condition and never regained consciousness. Eli Navon died several hours later after suffering catastrophic cardiac complications. Doctors later concluded he had likely experienced Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, also known as broken heart syndrome, triggered by the sudden physiological stress reaction caused by consuming a large quantity of wasabi. The condition causes the heart muscle to weaken rapidly under severe stress, mimicking a heart attack. Fatal cases are rare but medically documented. Yael's wedding reception ended early that night as guests quietly left the venue while family members remained at the hospital waiting for updates that never improved. The next case I'm covering also involves someone who thought they knew exactly what they were doing, except this man spent an entire year preparing, and it still wasn't enough. It was March 22, 2015, on a rural back road in Kentucky. Freezing rain covered the surrounding fields while warm kitchen lights glowed from a small farmhouse outside Bowling Green. Harold Bennett was 61 years old. and had spent over 3 decades teaching advanced chemistry at a public high school outside Bowling Green. Friends described him as intelligent, patient, and unusually obsessive when learning new skills. Retirement only made it worse. He became deeply fascinated with authentic Japanese cuisine, and what started as a hobby turned into years of practicing knife work, studying seafood handling, and mastering increasingly difficult preparation techniques at home. Several of Harold's homemade projects had gone surprisingly well over the years. He successfully cured salmon for sashimi, prepared expensive raw seafood without incident, and once spent days carefully breaking down an entire bluefin tuna from a specialty distributor. After years without anyone getting sick, Harold's confidence only grew stronger. In late 2014, he became fixated on fugu sashimi, the notoriously dangerous pufferfish dish prepared exclusively by specially licensed chefs in Japan. He studied diagrams, watched tutorials, read culinary textbooks, and printed anatomical images of pufferfish organs across his office walls. His wife strongly opposed the idea. Harold ignored her and eventually obtained illegally imported frozen uncleaned fugu through a black market seafood contact he had encountered in an online culinary forum. Now, this is where the danger starts, sometimes when failure is minimal. Overconfidence can make you feel invincible. Harold invited his 64-year-old brother-in-law, Dennis Fuller, over for dinner. Dennis had eaten Harold's homemade sushi for years without problems and trusted him completely. Harold reassured him he had spent nearly a year studying the process. He approached the preparation with extreme seriousness, wearing gloves and working carefully across the kitchen counter beneath a tall white chef's hat he had ordered online specifically for the occasion. After nearly 2 hours, he sliced the fish into thin sashimi portions and served them alongside sake and handwritten tasting notes. Harold had slightly miscalculated the liver removal, leaving traces of tetrodotoxin in the fish. Both men ate together, but Harold consumed far more because he wanted to fully evaluate the preparation he had spent months trying to perfect. Within 20 minutes, Harold complained that his lips felt numb. His hands lost coordination shortly after. Dennis soon developed numbness in his mouth and fingers, along with dizziness and difficulty speaking clearly, but Harold's symptoms progressed far more rapidly because he had eaten the larger portion. Harold collapsed beside the dining table while struggling to speak as paralysis spread through his body. Dennis, still partially able to move, called emergency services before becoming weak himself. Paramedics arrived to find Harold fully unresponsive on the kitchen floor, with Dennis drifting in and out of consciousness nearby. Dennis survived after intensive treatment at a local hospital. Harold died several hours later from respiratory failure caused by tetrodotoxin poisoning. The medical examiner recorded his cause of death as respiratory failure resulting from tetrodotoxin neurotoxicity following the consumption of improperly prepared pufferfish. The chef's hat was still sitting beside the unfinished sashimi when investigators documented the scene. Harold's case was about overconfidence in the kitchen. The next one had nothing to do with preparation at all. It was something the restaurant did, and they never said a single word about it publicly afterward. It was February 22, 2019, at a crowded Japanese fusion restaurant near downtown Orlando, Florida. The restaurant was loud and packed with diners, and a birthday party occupied one side of the dining room. Sandra Obi was 44 years old and worked as a guest services supervisor at a large resort hotel near International Drive. She was born in Enugu, Nigeria, but moved to Orlando with her mother and younger brother in August 2013 after her mother remarried. Even though at first Sandra hated Florida but adapted quickly. By 2015, she was managing the front desk and had become known for remembering every guest's name and every small detail people forgot about themselves. She married Chinedu Obi on May 17, 2016, after meeting him through mutual friends at a church fundraiser. Chinedu worked long overnight shifts repairing airport shuttle buses, while Sandra handled daytime hours at the hotel. By 2018, Sandra had become obsessed with food videos online and loved watching restaurant clips during breaks at work. In February 2019, Sandra received a promotion to guest services supervisor after years of covering extra shifts without complaint. To celebrate, her closest friends organized a dinner at this Japanese fusion restaurant that had recently gone viral online for oversized specialty rolls covered in sauces and tempura flakes. Sandra arrived tired after working nearly 10 hours straight but was in a good mood. She spent most of dinner laughing, taking photos, and teasing her friends for using chopsticks badly. Everyone loves thoughtful friends, and I'm not left out. Sandra just showed up to celebrate. Near the end of the meal, the table ordered a large dragon roll plated with decorative bamboo skewers to help hold its shape during preparation. The chef removed several skewers before serving, but a broken bamboo fragment roughly the size of a thick toothpick remained buried beneath avocado and rice near the center of the roll. Sandra ate that piece while distracted by a story one of her co-workers was telling. She barely chewed before swallowing. She briefly paused and coughed once as if the bite had gone down awkwardly, then took a sip of water and continued eating. The next morning she woke with abdominal pain, but assumed it was indigestion from overeating. She still went to work. By the second and third day, the pain became sharper and more constant. She developed fever, nausea, loss of appetite, and increasing difficulty standing fully upright, but kept dismissing it because she hated hospitals and did not want to miss shifts during a busy convention weekend. The broken bamboo fragment had punctured her small intestine during swallowing. Small amounts of bacteria and intestinal contents leaked into her abdomen over several days. Infection spread gradually through her abdominal cavity as her body attempted to contain the wound. She ignored the escalating symptoms, thinking rest and time would resolve the issue. By Wednesday night, Chinedu found her sitting on the bathroom floor, unable to stand without help. He drove her to the emergency room shortly after midnight. Doctors discovered the bamboo fragment had perforated her small intestine days earlier, allowing infection to spread throughout her abdomen. Emergency surgery began immediately to repair the perforation and clean the infected tissue. Despite aggressive treatment, Sandra developed septic shock as her body reacted to the overwhelming infection. Her organs began failing despite intensive care support and antibiotics. Sandra Obi died on March 2, 2019, 8 days after the dinner. She died from complications of septic shock and multi-organ failure caused by the small bowel perforation. The restaurant quietly removed decorative skewers from all future dishes 3 weeks later without issuing any public statement about the incident. Sandra's case was about something nobody at that table could have seen coming. The next one is different because the person at the center of it had already been warned. She just wanted one night where none of that mattered. It was October 18th, 2019, at a newly popular omakase restaurant in New Orleans after work. The restaurant was upscale and quiet, with a chef preparing a tasting menu for small groups of diners. Monica Freese was 27 years old and taught elementary school in Chalmette, Louisiana. She was born and raised in Metairie, just outside New Orleans. Her father owned a small auto repair shop, and her mother worked night shifts at a nursing home during Monica's childhood. She grew up social, funny, and sensitive about her appearance. By the time she graduated high school in May 2011, she already knew she wanted to become an elementary school teacher because she loved working with children. In January 2013, at 20 years old, Monica began studying education at the university while working weekends at a frozen yogurt shop. That same year, she met Caleb Landry during Mardi Gras through mutual friends. Caleb was confident and outgoing, and they started dating seriously within months. By 2015, Monica had begun teaching full-time at a public elementary school. The long hours and constant fast food slowly caused her to gain weight. Caleb claimed it did not bother him, but over time his comments became harder to ignore. He encouraged diets she never asked for and once admitted during an argument that he was less attracted to her than when they first met. In February 2017, Caleb ended the relationship after nearly 4 years together. Monica convinced herself her weight was the reason for the breakup. She became obsessed with losing weight quickly and began following extreme online diets, skipping meals, over-exercising, and relying heavily on appetite suppressants. At first, the weight dropped rapidly, but her health worsened. She constantly felt exhausted, dizzy, and nauseated. In December 2017, she collapsed while supervising recess at school and was rushed to the hospital. I have been in a situation like this, and trust me, losing weight can be overwhelming, but Monica wasn't ready to give up. Doctors discovered she had an autoimmune kidney disease that had likely existed silently for years before dehydration and crash dieting accelerated the damage. By mid-2018, she required dialysis treatments several times each week. In April 2019, Monica finally received a kidney transplant after months on a waiting list. Recovery was successful, but she was placed on lifelong immunosuppressant medication to prevent organ rejection. Doctors repeatedly warned her to avoid risky foods, especially raw eggs and undercooked ingredients. By October 2019, Monica had grown tired of living cautiously. She wanted to feel normal again. On this Friday evening, 2 co-workers invited her to the omakase restaurant after work. During the tasting menu, the chef served a signature gunkan roll topped with a raw quail egg sourced from a small local farm. Monica hesitated briefly before eating it. Within 48 hours, Monica developed fever, vomiting, severe stomach pain, and exhaustion. By the 4th day, she could barely stand without help. Blood tests at the hospital confirmed a severe salmonella infection that had already entered her bloodstream. Because she was taking immunosuppressant medication to protect her transplanted kidney, her body could not fight the bacteria effectively. The infection spread rapidly through her body, triggering septic shock. Doctors placed her in intensive care and began aggressive antibiotic treatment, but her organs gradually began shutting down over the following week. Monica Fries died on October 30, 2019, 12 days after the dinner at the omakase restaurant. She died from complications of septic shock and multi-organ failure caused by salmonella infection in an immunocompromised patient. The restaurant continued operating without changes or public notification of the incident. Monica made a choice knowing the risk. The next person I'm covering did everything right. He called ahead. He confirmed twice. He trusted a restaurant he had eaten at safely for months, and it still wasn't enough. It was June 11th, 2016 in Charlotte, North Carolina, at a small upscale sushi restaurant known for late-night specials and unusually long waits during weekends. Darnell Foster was a 31-year-old graphic designer who worked remotely for a regional advertising company in Charlotte. Friends described him as organized, funny, and extremely careful about his severe sesame allergy, which he had managed successfully since childhood. Despite the allergy, Darnell loved sushi and had been eating regularly at the same restaurant for nearly 8 months without problems. Staff members recognized him immediately whenever he walked in because he always followed the same routine before ordering. He would call ahead, remind the restaurant about the allergy, confirm ingredients with the server again after arriving, and avoid unfamiliar menu items entirely. Because the restaurant had safely prepared his meals so many times before, Darnell trusted them more than anywhere else he ate. At home, life had recently become even happier. His wife Carolina was 7 months pregnant with their first child, and Darnell had spent most of that summer preparing the nursery inside their apartment. Friends said he talked constantly about becoming a father and had recently started taking extra freelance work to save money before the baby arrived. That Saturday evening, Darnell stopped at the sushi restaurant after work, while Carolina stayed home assembling baby furniture with her sister. Earlier in the week, the restaurant had quietly switched to a temporary spicy mayo supplier after running out of their normal stock before the weekend rush. Darnell arrived around 8:30 p.m., called ahead like always, and reminded both the hostess and server about his sesame allergy before ordering his usual spicy tuna roll. After checking briefly with the kitchen, the server assured him everything was safe. Feeling relaxed because he had eaten the same order dozens of times before, Darnell settled into a booth near the sushi counter and began eating while replying to messages from Carolina about baby names and paint colors for the nursery. If I'm to say anything here, it's that Darnell was expecting his unborn baby. He must have been so excited. After finishing several pieces, Darnell noticed a slight irritation in his throat. Because sesame reactions had previously caused only mild symptoms when caught early, he initially assumed it might simply be cross-contamination or irritation from spicy food rather than a severe reaction. Instead of immediately using his EpiPen, he drank water and waited several minutes, hoping the discomfort would settle on its own. During that time, the reaction escalated rapidly. Swallowing became painful and pressure spread through his chest. Breathing suddenly grew difficult and his throat began tightening. Darnell realized the reaction was far more serious than usual and reached for the EpiPen inside his jacket pocket. By the time he injected it, his hands were already shaking badly and his throat had begun swelling significantly. His phone repeatedly lit up with incoming calls from Carolina, asking when he planned to come home as restaurant staff noticed him struggling for air beside the table. Paramedics arrived within minutes and rushed him toward a nearby hospital while continuing treatment inside the ambulance. Although the EpiPen briefly slowed the reaction, the allergic response continued spreading aggressively through his body. His airways continued swelling and his blood pressure dropped dangerously. Carolina arrived at the hospital before midnight, still wearing paint-stained clothes from assembling the nursery. Darnell suffered cardiac arrest less than 2 hours after eating the contaminated sushi roll. Doctors attempted aggressive resuscitation, but his heart could not be restarted. Darnell Foster died from anaphylactic shock triggered by sesame exposure through the temporary mayo supplier. He was 31 years old. Carolina was 7 months pregnant and alone. The restaurant closed temporarily and switched back to their original mayo supplier without issuing any public statement about the incident. Darnell trusted a system that failed him without warning. The next case involves someone who also had no warning, except the danger had been building inside her body for over an hour before she said a single word about it. It was August 8, 2018, at a crowded conveyor belt sushi restaurant in downtown Osaka, Japan, during the dinner rush. Min-ji Park was a 33-year-old food content creator from Seoul, South Korea. She had slowly built a small but loyal online audience obsessed with her sushi videos. Her account had grown to nearly 4,000 followers after she began filming aesthetically perfect clips inside Japanese conveyor belt restaurants. Friends described her as energetic, ambitious, and constantly searching for the next video capable of pushing her account viral. One stunt that boosted her popularity involved a 100 plates in one night conveyor belt challenge she filmed in Tokyo the previous year. The video gained thousands of views within days and brought her more than 3,000 new followers almost overnight. After that success, Min-ji became increasingly focused on filming faster-paced food content that looked exciting online. You know one thing I hate about social media? You are always stuck in a circle of always wanting to do the next big thing, which can be one's undoing. During a business trip through Osaka in summer 2018, Minji stopped at a famous conveyor belt sushi restaurant between meetings, hoping to quickly film content before heading across the city for a scheduled brand collaboration. Running behind schedule and distracted by filming clips for her account, she continued stacking empty sushi plates beside her phone while checking messages from co-workers between bites. At one point, she grabbed a plate carrying grilled fish sushi and swallowed most of it quickly without chewing properly, trying to finish recording before leaving the restaurant. Almost immediately, she felt a sharp irritation deep in her throat. At first, it seemed minor, more uncomfortable than painful, and she assumed a small fish bone had scratched the inside of her throat. Embarrassed to interrupt the busy restaurant or attract attention while filming, Minji continued eating and repeatedly drank water, hoping the sensation would disappear on its own. Instead, each swallow appeared to force the thin bone deeper. Over the next hour, the discomfort became dramatically worse. Speaking started to hurt, and swallowing became increasingly difficult as pressure spread down into her chest. Co-workers meeting her later that evening reported she struggled to finish sentences without wincing in pain. Even then, Minji insisted it was probably just irritation from eating too quickly. Only after the pain became severe enough to affect her breathing did her co-workers convince her to go to a nearby hospital. Scans revealed the fishbone had punctured her esophagus, allowing bacteria to spread into tissue surrounding the chest cavity. The bone was extremely thin and sharp. The puncture was small but deep. Emergency surgery was performed that night in an attempt to repair the tear and control the rapidly developing infection. Surgeons found the perforation in the lower esophageal wall and removed the bone fragment. They cleaned the surrounding tissue and drained infected material from the chest cavity. Despite intensive treatment, the infection continued spreading aggressively through her chest over the following 2 days. Minji developed severe mediastinitis as bacteria multiplied in the space between her lungs and heart. Her body went into septic shock. Even with antibiotics and additional surgery, the infection could not be controlled. She died from complications related to mediastinal infection caused by the esophageal perforation. Doctors later stated the bone responsible was so small she likely never realized how serious the injury had become until it was already life-threatening. The delay in seeking medical care allowed the infection to advance unchecked for hours. Investigation concluded that the incident resulted from rapid eating without proper chewing during food content creation activities. Minji's case moved fast. The last one I'm covering today is the complete opposite, because this one took years, and the entire time, nothing ever felt wrong. It was May 3rd, 2018, at an upscale sushi restaurant in Portland, Oregon. Soft jazz music drifted through the dining space as regular customers filled polished wooden booths beneath dim, hanging lanterns. Paul Whitmore was a 51-year-old insurance claims supervisor who had spent nearly 25 years working for the same regional insurance company in Portland. Friends described him as dependable, quiet, and deeply family-oriented. He lived a simple, structured life that rarely changed. Every weekday he left work at the same time, stopped briefly at the grocery store or dry cleaners if needed, and usually ended the evening eating dinner with his wife and children. Paul avoided smoking, rarely drank alcohol, and became increasingly focused on healthy eating after turning 50. Around 2015, he developed a strong interest in sushi, especially bluefin tuna, after reading articles praising fish-heavy diets for heart health and longevity. Eventually, he began eating at the same upscale sushi restaurant nearly every day after work, often ordering multiple servings of bluefin tuna sashimi and nigiri because he believed it was one of the healthiest meals available. One thing that stays with me here is that Paul really wants to live healthy, and he was happy about his family. Over time, the restaurant staff grew familiar with Paul's routine. Some employees had his usual order prepared before he even sat down. He rarely experimented with other menu items and often joked that bluefin tuna was health food disguised as luxury. At home, life also felt especially stable. His son Tyler had recently graduated from college with an engineering degree, while his daughter Emily had just accepted her first major accounting job in Seattle. Paul and his wife spent months planning a celebratory family vacation to Hawaii for the following summer, something they had postponed for years while saving money for their children's education. The first changes seemed harmless at first. After more than a decade of eating large amounts of tuna several times each week, Paul occasionally complained about fatigue after work and sometimes forgot small details during conversations, which his family blamed on stress and long hours at the office. Over the following months, he developed slight hand tremors and moments of confusion that became increasingly difficult to explain. Even then, Paul continued following the same daily routines and eating tuna almost every evening because he still believed he was maintaining a healthy lifestyle. By early 2019, his condition had worsened noticeably. He struggled to focus during meetings, occasionally lost balance while walking, and developed numbness in his fingers severe enough to interfere with simple tasks at home. His family became alarmed after he forgot details of the Hawaii vacation they had discussed repeatedly for months. He could not remember conversations from days earlier. His hands shook when he tried to write. His wife insisted he see a doctor. After nearly 19 months of worsening symptoms, specialists finally ordered toxicology testing during a hospital evaluation in spring 2019. Blood results revealed mercury levels nearly 6 times above the accepted safety threshold. The exposure had accumulated from roughly 15 years of consuming large amounts of bluefin tuna, while underlying kidney damage likely reduced his body's ability to clear the mercury. By then, the neurological damage was already irreversible. Doctors immediately began chelation therapy and supportive treatment, but his condition continued worsening. His kidneys and nervous system deteriorated rapidly, and he eventually developed difficulty speaking and swallowing. Paul spent his final weeks in the hospital with his family beside him, discussing the Hawaii vacation they never took. He died from mercury-induced organ failure later that year at 51 years old.